Marcus hadn't been close to a woman in 12 years. Then the first woman who came to him was badly hurt. Marcus Coulter didn't expect much from life anymore. He lived alone and quiet in the dry hills of Arizona. He had only the wind and heavy memories he never talked about. He owned a small house, a gun, and old regrets. But one day, everything changed. A woman came running out of the trees like death was chasing her. She had no shoes, was dirty, and wore only a torn piece of white cloth that used to be a curtain or dress. Her arms were cut up. Her lips were dry and cracked. Her eyes looked like they had seen terrible things. She fell right in front of him. She didn't scream or say her name. She just whispered 2 words while holding the dirty cloth to her chest. "Please don't." Marcus stopped moving. She wasn't bleeding much on the outside, but her whole body shook like she had just escaped a fire. He stepped toward her. She pulled back but didn't run away. The cloth slipped a little, and what Marcus saw made his stomach feel sick. Her back looked like someone had burned her with fire and shame. There were burns, cuts, deep twisted scars, and marks that shouldn't be on human skin, symbols and letters, like someone had tried to write their name into her pain. Marcus stepped back. It wasn't the blood or wounds that shocked him. It was how she curled up like she had learned to make herself disappear. For a moment, all he could see was Tennessee, the war, and a girl he couldn't save, one who looked at him with the same broken stare. He had walked away once before. He promised himself never again. He took off his coat slowly and wrapped it around her like a promise. No words, no questions, just action. Then he picked her up and carried her away from whatever hell she had escaped from. For the first time in a very long time, he felt alive. He thought the worst was over. He had no idea the real trouble was just starting. The cabin. The cabin was warm, but up in those hills, the night air was still cold. After what she had been through, even a summer breeze might have felt like ice on her skin. He laid her down gently on the old bed by the back wall. She didn't speak or try to cover herself more than she already was. She just curled up, holding onto his coat like it was made of safety. Marcus didn't ask questions. He didn't want to scare her, and he wouldn't have known where to start anyway. So he did what men like him do when words feel like too much. He built a small fire in the stove, not because it was cold, but because the crackling sound gave the place a heartbeat. She didn't move much. Her eyes just looked around the cabin like she expected someone to break down the door. Every noise outside made her jump. Even the wind hitting the shutters seemed to shake her. Marcus made coffee. It was bitter, strong, and older than he'd like, but it gave his hands something to do. He sat at the table, watching the fire and stealing glances at her now and then. She was still breathing, still quiet. But the way she gripped his coat told him she hadn't given up completely. Later that night, she moved just a little. Her head turned, and her eyes met his for a moment. No words, no emotion, just a connection, a tiny spark of something human buried deep under all that pain. He nodded like a man who had been in war and knew when not to speak. She turned her head back toward the wall. The next morning, she whispered her first word, water. He handed her a cup, slow and careful. No sudden moves. She drank quietly, then looked at him a little longer than before. That look didn't ask for help or thank him. It just said one thing, I'm still here. Marcus didn't know yet that this single word and one sip of water would start a chain of events that no fire, no gun, and no amount of silence could ever stop. Her story. She didn't talk much the next day. Just short answers, nods, and a few careful looks like she was still trying to figure out if he was real or just another trick of a cruel world. But later that afternoon, while he was fixing a broken chair on the porch, she came outside and sat on the steps beside him. She didn't say anything at first, just stared into the trees. Then, almost like she was talking to herself, she said it, they used to make me clean their boots. Marcus kept working. Didn't react. Just nodded slowly. She kept going. She said there was a mining camp not far away. Not official. Not on any map. A place where they worked people to death and punished them when they broke. She had tried to run twice. First time, they broke her nose. Second time, they carved up her back like leather. He didn't ask how she escaped the third time. He figured that was a story best told on a stronger day. But just as the sun started to set behind the trees, Marcus heard something that made him freeze: horse hooves, moving fast, coming up the ridge road. He stood, grabbed his gun, and told the woman to go inside. She froze, then moved like she had been trained for moments like this. The first threat. The man who rode up didn't look like a cowboy. He looked like a mean businessman who blamed others for his problems. Fancy vest, greasy mustache that couldn't hide the cruelty in his eyes. He called her by name: Sophie Rose, you got one chance to come back quiet. Marcus stepped down from the porch. She's not going anywhere. The man smiled mean: ain't up to you, old-timer. Marcus loaded his gun. Not aimed, just enough to remind the man this wasn't some city street. This was his land. The man didn't draw his gun. Just spit in the dirt, turned his horse, and rode off. But the look in his eyes said one thing clear: he'd be back, and he wouldn't be alone. Marcus didn't say anything for a long while after, just sat there with his gun across his lap, staring into the trees. Later that night, he wrote a note to an old friend who was a lawman, just in case. The real fight. 3 days passed, quiet ones, but not peaceful quiet. The kind where even the wind feels like it's waiting for something. Marcus stayed close. He didn't say it, but Sophie knew he was keeping watch. He didn't cut wood or check traps, just cleaned his gun like the world was about to go to hell. Then it happened. Late afternoon, the air got still. No birds, no bugs, just the sound of horses and dust rising on the ridge road. 3 riders came, not ranchers, not lawmen. They rode like they didn't need to ask permission. Marcus stood in the doorway, Sophie behind him, holding her breath. One of the men was the same one from before. This time, he didn't come to talk. He yelled, "Step aside, old man." Marcus didn't move. The second rider reached for his gun. Marcus didn't wait. He fired. The man screamed, fell like a sack, leg bleeding. The other 2 froze. That's when another voice came, calm and steady: "I'd think real hard about your next move." From the trees, a man stepped out with a badge on his chest and a rifle ready. Sheriff Benjamin Hale, Marcus's old war buddy. Benjamin looked each of them in the eye. "This is my area, and she's under my protection now." The hurt one groaned, his friend cursed, but none of them reached for guns again. They left slowly, but they left. Later, Marcus asked Benjamin how he knew to come. Benjamin smiled: "When you send a note that smells like gunpowder and worry, I figure it's serious." Healing. The dust settled. The cabin was quiet again, but different than before. Not heavy or haunted, just quiet in a way that let a man hear his own breathing and not hate it. Sophie didn't hide anymore. She still jumped at loud noises and woke up sweating some nights. But now she sat at the table in the morning. She drank her coffee slowly. She helped gather firewood and asked questions about the stove. Little things. But little things matter when you've come back from the edge. Marcus noticed it too. How she looked out the window longer each morning. How she once laughed, barely a breath, but it was there. And he didn't know what to do with it. He wasn't sure if he was fixing her or she was fixing him. Maybe it didn't matter. One evening, she brought in some wild flowers and put them by the window. He didn't say anything, but the next day, he swept the porch clean for the first time in years. They didn't talk about love or call it anything at all. But one night, over soup and black coffee, she looked up and asked, "You ever think some people were put here not to save others, but to give them space to save themselves?" Marcus didn't answer, just nodded. Because if he had opened his mouth, the wrong words might have come out. And that's how it went. 2 people, a cabin, and slow healing that didn't need permission or explanation. The real question. But here's the thing. How many people like Sophie are still out there right now? How many people like Marcus are sitting alone thinking their story is done? Sometimes all it takes is one choice, one act of kindness, one moment of not walking away. So let me ask you something. Who are you in this story? Are you the one running, or the one who stands still and opens the door? Sometimes the best thing we can do is just be there when someone needs space to heal.